As it is, I fear what I've created. I am Victor Frankenstein, and I've created a nightmare. A cookie so good that it is scary. I use a stick of butter. I'd recommend softened butter. A cup of white sugar. You could use brown if you had the guts. Now, the whole stick of butter is about a cup of butter. If you don't want to use that much, use margarine. I used a dollop of vanilla extract, the best thing to use when cooking. And I quickly added my egg for binding. Now, I made sure to get no shell in it. And it was a little frozen. Not my problem. Now, I'd recommend using a stand mixer, but I did not have one, and I didn't dare to use it on my monstrosity. So I decided to just mix it by hand. It worked both ways. It worked pretty well. Worked very well, actually. I have to admit, perfectly well. Now you're going to mix it with a normal whisk. But once you've given up on that because your butter is too cold, and it should not be that cold, I decided to use a dangerous weapon. Not a stand mixer, but a hand mixer. Something so easily that I could use was my key. Now, if you had softened butter, you'd have no problem. But I prefer a biscuit-like texture. Something that has tiny pockets of butter that melt during the baking process. And give it life, give it rise, give it movement, give it shape. Give it crispy bits on the outside and gooey bits on the inside, making the perfect cookie. Now, be careful. You have to use it correctly. After all, lightning could strike at any moment, because we live in a tower, and sadly end us all. See, that butter is shredding. And as you can tell, it is creating tiny bits of butter that once baking will become biscuit-like. I did heat mine up for a little bit on a double boiler. You don't have to do that. It was just the safest way to prevent egg curdling. But if you could do 10 seconds in the microwave. Until that butter is soft to the touch, to the point where you could probably mix it in with a hand mixer, or just a hand. Now trying to get the batter off them was quite harder than I expected. Pulling it off and rinsing it under cold water is the only key. Now, compost cookies involve two things, a salty thing and a sweet thing. I used pretzels as my salty thing. I took a handful and crushed it, creating layers in the cookie. Now on to our dry ingredients. I used 2 cups of flour, all-purpose, because I prefer all-purpose. All-purpose is a good flour, after all. I mean, it's not best for everything, but it is very good, especially for baking. Now, you're going to add baking soda and baking powder, a tablespoon of each. I make my own baking soda when cooking, mainly because I was out. And baking powder is just baking soda plus an acid, like citric acid, or cream of tartar. So I did a pinch of both. Why a pinch? It's because I didn't have a tablespoon measurer. It was in the dishwasher! Adding sprinkles will bring a nice little color to yours. Sadly, I use black and white, which actually helps because I don't have to describe to you the colors, but it's black and white. Like this video is. Sorry if you don't get the reference, but I'm referencing the original Frankenstein movie where he's making a monster. Anyway, you're going to mix those dry ingredients thoroughly and make sure that your wet is ready. I just make sure that it was soft enough. Mixing it in. Now, I found that this was a little too dry. I needed a pinch of milk. After all, I didn't use another cup of brown sugar, which I would recommend, but I didn't have any, and this recipe didn't need it in the end. But brown sugar is just sugar with molasses, which I don't own molasses, okay? Sue me, I don't own molasses. I'm not in the South. I don't need it for every single recipe. Anyway, back into character. I had a small splash of milk. But I realized I missed my sweet thing, so I mixed in Fruity Pebbles, a nice crispy cereal that has layers of colors, which I can now explain because we're in black and white. Okay, it's green, red, blue, yellow. Those are the colors, I think. I don't know, I'm not in my kitchen right now looking at the box. Anyway, I mixed it up thoroughly, making sure that each was covered. Now, we are going to wrap it and put it in the fridge for an hour. You're going to take a just sheet of plastic wrap and put it in. I did add a splash of milk. It was a little too dry. You could add about, I don't know, just a splash, okay? I don't want to measure out a splash of milk, okay? Jesus. Anyway, you're going to put that into the center of the bowl. I did have to wash my bowl out because, of course. Now here is the plastic wrap. You're going to simply make this into a log. How you do that is by rolling tightly, by creasing one edge, and bringing it back out. Then scattering all the other stuff together and rolling it to it. Now roll it on the other side. Roll. And then roll it up tightly. Leave that in the fridge for an hour. And make something delicious. I did have to add another layer. Anyway, after an hour of resting, we're going to remove it. It should be hard now, like frozen cookie dough. That tastes pretty good. Don't do it because it has raw egg in it, even though technically an egg's not going to kill you from salmonella. That's something for another video, because actually turtles have killed more people than eggs have from salmonella. Anyway, we're going to cut that off. I had to test it. Don't do what I do, but you could, because it's not that bad. Anyway, I programmed my oven to 330. My oven is a little cold. You could do 325. Now just smush it into a kind of ball. I did decide that these were too big and split them among 2 baking trays. Just remember, the smaller your balls, the less top-heavy the cookies are. You get this biscuit texture that is amazing. It is scientifically the best cookie in the world. I call it the compost cookie, and it is beautiful. Beautiful, I say. Beautiful. Happy Halloween, everybody. I did want to say a thing real quick. Sean Connery, an actor I really love, passed away today, and I'm just heartbroken by it. You can really tell in like my stop motions and stuff that he really affected me and my work, and I just gotta thank him for his years of acting. He's amazing. Rest in peace, man.